My name is Sophie. When I opened my eyes again, the familiar carved top of my bed came into view, and the scent of my favorite incense filled the air. My heart skipped a beat. This was my old bedroom in the Sioux family mansion, from before I was married. I sat up quickly and looked around. Everything was exactly as I remembered. The dressing table, the painted screen, and the familiar view of the courtyard outside the window. Trembling, I reached up and touched my face. The smooth, youthful skin. Could it be? Had I been reborn? I pinched myself hard. A sharp pain shot through me, confirming that this was no dream. Memories of my past life came flooding back. The humiliation, the betrayal, the despair. Each scene was like a sharp blade cutting deep into my heart. No matter how hard I tried in my family's eyes, I could never measure up to my sister Lily. They thought I was cunning and manipulative, while they saw her as innocent, kind, and fragile. For the sake of their meager affection, I held back again and again. But what did it get me? Lily set her sights on my fiancé. Together, they drugged me and threw me into a stable hands bed, ruining my reputation. They took my inheritance, stole my marriage, trampled me into the dirt, and cast me aside like garbage. As I thought of this, hatred burned like fire inside me. Since heaven had given me a second chance, I, Sophie, would not repeat the past. Those who had hurt me would pay. I walked over to the bronze mirror and looked at my reflection, young and full of life. My eyes grew determined. In this life, I would live for myself. Those ungrateful snakes had better watch out. In the days that followed, on the surface I was still the gentle, well-mannered eldest daughter of the Sioux family. But inside I was completely reborn. One day, an important guest arrived at the Sioux mansion, the son of a powerful official from the capital who was discussing business with our family. In my past life, I had worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make everything perfect for the sake of the family's reputation, but I never received a single word of thanks. This time, I simply stood to the side and watched as my mother and sister rushed around busily. Lily flitted about in a pink dress, playing up her delicate, charming act in front of the guest. I watched coldly, a faint smile of mockery on my lips. After the guest was seated, my mother began introducing the family's businesses, but she soon stumbled over her words. I smirked inwardly. In the past I would have stepped in to help, but now I just stood quietly, watching the fine beads of sweat form on her forehead. Just as the atmosphere grew awkward, Lily said in a sugary voice, "Sir, our family's businesses are very prosperous." Mother is just a bit nervous and misspoke. The guest frowned slightly, clearly displeased by her interruption. Seeing that the timing was right, I finally spoke up calmly. "Mother, you must be tired. Please sit and rest." "Sir, allow me to explain the Sioux family's businesses in detail." I clearly and logically laid out everything, from the silk shops to the rice trade, store locations to operations. The guest listened intently, nodding frequently and looking at me with appreciation. My mother and Lily were both stunned. They probably never expected me to break from my usual role. A flash of jealousy crossed Lily's eyes, while my mother looked conflicted. This is only the beginning. I will repay every bit of humiliation you gave me." A few days after the guest's visit, my fiancé Daniel, the son of the Minister of Rights, came to visit. In my past life, he had been fooled by Lily's sweet act. He cast me aside and even took part in the plot to ruin me. This time, as I watched him enter the hall, I felt nothing but disgust. He still looked every bit the elegant young nobleman, but I knew the ugliness that lay beneath that handsome surface. When Daniel saw me, he gave a warm smile. "Sophie, it's been too long. How have you been?" I stared back coldly without answering. He seemed to sense something was off, and his smile began to falter. Just then Lily emerged from the side room. When she saw Daniel, her eyes lit up with delight. "Mr. Daniel, you're here," she said sweetly. Daniel's gaze lingered on her for a moment, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. I sneered inwardly. Just like before, a playboy who falls for any pretty face. "Mr. Daniel, what brings you to the Sioux mansion today?" I asked coldly. Daniel collected himself and said, "Sophie, I heard your family has been having some business troubles lately. I came to see if I could help." I knew he was just trying to curry favor with the family for his own benefit. "There's no need for your concern," I said bluntly. "The Sioux family can handle our own affairs." Daniel's face fell. He clearly hadn't expected me to be so dismissive. Lily jumped in anxiously. "Sister, Mr. Daniel is only trying to help. How can you be so cold? I turned my icy gaze toward her. Lily, this is between Mr. Daniel and me. Stay out of it. Lily was left speechless, her eyes welling up with tears as she put on her wounded act. Just as Daniel was about to say more, a servant announced that my older brother Oliver had returned. Perfect, I thought. Let Oliver see what a wonderful future brother-in-law Daniel really is. Oliver entered the hall and frowned slightly when he saw Daniel. He had never liked him, seeing right through his hypocrisy. Mr. Daniel, what brings you here today? Oliver asked coolly. Daniel quickly replied, Oliver, I heard the Sioux family has been having some business difficulties. I came to offer my help. Oliver snorted. We appreciate the thought, but the Sioux family can handle our own problems. Daniel looked embarrassed and was about to make an excuse to leave when a servant rushed in to report that troublemakers had caused a scene at the silk shop, smashing several items. Oliver's expression darkened, and he immediately stood up to deal with it. Seeing this, Daniel said, Oliver, let me come with you. Maybe I can help. Oliver hesitated for a moment, then nodded. I had a bad feeling about Daniel's offer and decided to follow them. When we arrived at the silk shop, the place was in chaos. Several thugs were shouting and causing a scene. Oliver stepped forward and demanded, Who are you? Why are you causing trouble here? One of the thugs smirked. Young Master Sioux, someone paid us to teach you a lesson. Oliver frowned. Who was it? The thug just laughed and didn't answer. Then Daniel spoke up. Oliver, it seems someone is targeting your family. You should be careful. I eyed Daniel suspiciously. Was it possible he was behind this? Just then, the thug suddenly pulled out a dagger and lunged at Oliver. I gasped and instinctively rushed forward to block him. In that critical moment, a figure flashed past, knocking the dagger out of the thug's hand. I looked up and saw a stranger, a young man in a moon-white robe, tall and poised with a cool, handsome face. Thank you for your help, sir, Oliver said gratefully. The young man nodded slightly. I only did what was right. As I looked at him, I felt a strange sense of familiarity and peace. This young man who had come to our aid was Julian, the second son of General Lin Jingfeng. He was a quiet man but highly skilled in martial arts. After this incident, I was filled with gratitude toward Julian, and he seemed to pay more attention to me as well. We gradually spent more time together, and every time we met, his gaze was especially gentle. One day, I went to a temple in the countryside to pray and happened to run into Julian. He was riding a white horse, looking particularly handsome under the sunlight. When he saw me, a flicker of delight flashed in his eyes. He dismounted and walked over to me. Miss Sophie, what a pleasant surprise. I smiled slightly. Indeed, Mr. Julian. We walked side by side along the temple path, discussing poetry and sharing our views on life. Julian was knowledgeable and witty, and being with him made me feel more at ease than ever before. Miss Sophie, you seem different from other young ladies, Julian said suddenly. Curious, I asked, Oh, how so? He looked at me with sincere eyes. You're clever, courageous, and you have a mind of your own. You're not like those girls who only care about romance and trivial matters. His words struck a chord in me. Since I was a child, no one had ever described me that way. In my family's eyes, I was just the scheming eldest daughter who could never measure up to her sister. Before we knew it, the sun began to set, and it was time for us to part. Julian looked at me with a hint of reluctance in his eyes. Miss Sophie, I look forward to seeing you again. I nodded slightly, watching him ride away. A strange flutter stirred in my heart. Meanwhile, back at the Sioux mansion, my older brother Oliver seemed to notice something unusual between Julian and me. He found me and said seriously, Sis, Julian seems like a good man, but you shouldn't trust him too easily. The world is complicated and people can be deceitful. You need to be careful. I knew he meant well, but I trusted my instincts. Julian was different from the others. No sooner had one issue settled than another arose. My second brother, Ryan, had fallen off his horse while out riding and injured his leg. In my past life, I had been frantic with worry, spending a fortune to find him the best doctors and medicines. Yet he never once thanked me. This time, I simply visited him and said calmly, Ryan, rest well and focus on recovering. He looked at me in surprise, as if he hadn't expected me to be so indifferent. Sis, how can you be so cold? I'm your brother, he said angrily. I sneered inwardly. Ryan, there's nothing I can do. I can only feel sorry for you. But what good is that? Will it heal your leg? He was left speechless, his face turning red and pale by turns. My mother scolded me. Sophie, how can you say such things? Your brother is injured. You should be more caring. I looked at her and replied, Mother, did any of you notice when I cared for him in the past? Why pretend to want my concern now? She had no response. Lily chimed in with false concern. Sister, don't be like this. Ryan must be feeling awful. I've already sent for the best doctor in the capital. Why don't you contribute too? I shot her a cold look. Since you're so eager to help, you can handle it. I won't get involved. Lily was taken aback, a flash of embarrassment crossing her face. Seeing their reactions, I felt nothing. In my past life, I had given them everything only to be betrayed and hurt. This time, I would not make the same mistake. Next, my younger sister, Emma, became infatuated with a poor scholar and insisted on marrying him. In my past life, I had strongly opposed the match, fearing she would suffer in poverty. But she thought I was being difficult and grew to resent me. This time, I wholeheartedly supported her. Emma, if you love him, then marry him. I support you. Both Emma and the rest of the family were stunned. They clearly hadn't expected this reaction. Sister, you really agree? Emma asked in disbelief. I smiled. Of course. As long as you're happy. My mother anxiously interjected. Sophie, what are you saying? That scholar has nothing. How can Emma marry into such hardship? I looked at her calmly. Mother, we should respect Emma's choice. Besides, who's to say he won't make something of himself someday? Lily fanned the flames. Mother, what is sister thinking? How can she let Emma throw her life away like this? I shot Lily a cold glare. Lily, if you're so concerned, why don't you talk her out of it? Lily was left speechless once again. In the end, Emma insisted on marrying the poor scholar. As I watched her determined expression, I thought to myself, this time, you'll learn the consequences of your choices. Perhaps only then will you understand who truly has your best interests at heart. Just as Emma was preparing for the wedding, disaster struck Daniel's family. The Minister of Rights was found guilty of corruption and accepting bribes. The Zhao family's properties were confiscated. In my past life they had ruined me, and seeing this now brought me immense satisfaction. I stood on the street watching as government officials sealed up the Zhao residence. Daniel was led out in shackles, a far cry from the elegant young man he once was. When he saw me, a pleading look flashed in his eyes. Sophie, please help me. I know I was wrong. I stared coldly at him, feeling no pity. Daniel, you brought this on yourself. Why should I help you? Before he could say more, the officers dragged him away. As I watched his retreating figure, the hatred in my heart eased slightly. Just then, Julian walked up to me and gently took my hand. Sophie, don't let someone like him ruin your mood. He got what he deserved. I looked at Julian, feeling a wave of warmth, and nodded. Back at the Sioux mansion, the family was shocked by the news. Lily looked especially stunned. She probably never expected the man she admired to end up like this. Sister, how could this happen? She asked me. I replied flatly, those who do evil will be repaid with evil. He did terrible things and this is his punishment. My mother sighed nearby. Sophie, didn't you consider helping the Zhao family? After all, you were once engaged to Daniel. I looked at her, feeling a chill in my heart. Mother, have you forgotten how they treated me? And now you want me to save them? Do you even see me as your daughter? She lowered her head, speechless. In this life, I would no longer be bound by family ties. Those who had hurt me would pay for their actions. And with Julian by my side, I would begin a new life. After the Zhao family incident, the atmosphere at home became tense. My brothers and parents seemed to realize that I was no longer the Sophie they could easily manipulate. One day my father called me into his study. He looked at me, his eyes full of guilt. Sophie, all these years, I've wronged you. We all misunderstood you. Can you forgive us? I laughed inwardly. Now you regret it? But the damage is done. Forgiveness isn't that easy. Father, what are you saying? I've never blamed you, I said obediently, while silently wondering what they were up to. Relieved by my response, my father said, it's good that you feel this way. From now on, I hope you'll take a more active role in family matters. Though I felt scornful, I nodded in agreement. My mother began showering me with attention, and even Lily dropped her usual sarcasm, acting unusually friendly. I knew they were only trying to win me over now that I was no longer an easy target. I played along, watching them perform in front of me, all the while finding it ridiculous. Even Oliver and Ryan changed their attitudes toward me. Oliver often sought me out for heart-to-heart conversations, showing me great care. Ryan stopped making cold remarks and even offered to help me with things. But deep down, I knew their changes weren't sincere. They were only trying to make up for past hurts and salvage our relationship. While dealing with my family's kindness, my relationship with Julian grew stronger. He remained devoted to me, often taking me on outings to the countryside and spending many joyful moments with me. Gradually, I began to experience true love and care in his warmth. However, I knew it wasn't over yet. Beneath the surface calm of the Sioux family, undercurrents still flowed. I had to stay vigilant to protect myself from being hurt again. At the same time, I was waiting for the right moment to make them pay fully for what they had done in my past life. During this period of playing along with my family, I secretly investigated the details of the plots against me in my past life. I discovered that things were not as simple as they seemed. It appeared that Lily had the support of some mysterious force behind her. One day, by chance, I discovered an unsigned letter in Lily's room. It mentioned plans to frame me and contained vague clues about a mysterious faction behind it all. My heart sank. It seemed Lily was merely a pawn and someone else was using her to target me. I kept the letter and began following the clues. With Julian's help, we gradually uncovered that this mysterious faction seemed connected to a certain Imperial Consort in the palace. This consort was ambitious and wanted to strengthen her family's influence. Since the Sioux family held some sway in the capital, she aimed to control us to serve her purposes. The revelation fueled my anger. So my suffering in my past life was part of such an intricate scheme. I decided to play along, using my family's newfound trust in me to investigate this mysterious faction further and destroy them in one strike. I intentionally dropped hints in front of Lily, pretending to be panicked and confused. Lily took the bait and began contacting the mysterious faction more frequently. I secretly trailed her and finally located one of their meeting points. With Julian and Oliver leading the way, we raided the hideout and captured several key figures. After questioning, they confessed that the mastermind behind it all was the Imperial Consort. I looked coldly at the people kneeling on the ground. You thought you could manipulate others' lives so easily? Now it's time to pay. Learning that the mastermind was the Imperial Consort, I knew this was no longer just a family matter. It had drawn us into the treacherous world of palace politics. After discussing with Julian and Oliver, we decided to inform my father and have him present the evidence to the emperor. With a heavy heart, my father went to the palace and presented the evidence we had gathered to the emperor. The emperor was furious and immediately ordered a full investigation into the consort and her followers. However, the consort had built her influence over many years in the palace. When she learned of the accusations, she made a desperate move. She went to the emperor in tears, twisting the truth and claiming that our family was plotting a rebellion and falsely accusing her. The emperor, unable to determine the truth immediately, ordered my father imprisoned and had soldiers surround the Sioux mansion, allowing no one in or out. Panic spread through the Sioux household. My mother and younger sister were terrified, crying all day. Lily was especially flustered. She probably never expected things to go this far. Amid the chaos, I remained calm. I knew the consort was making a desperate move and we had to act quickly. Julian secretly sneaked into the mansion to discuss a plan with me. Sophie, the consort's move is ruthless. We can't just wait for disaster to strike, he said, his brow furrowed with worry. I nodded. I've been thinking the same. Our priority is to find more evidence of the consort's crimes to convince the emperor. Just then, Oliver remembered a crucial clue. When we had raided the hideout, we had captured a young eunuch who handled messages. At the time, we had only gotten partial information from him. Perhaps he could provide more useful details. After some effort, we located the imprisoned eunuch. Under Julian's persuasion and pressure, the eunuch finally revealed a critical secret. The consort had ordered letters documenting her conspiracy with outside officials to be hidden in a secret room in a remote palace building. This was explosive information. If we could obtain those letters, the consort's crimes would be undeniable. But the palace was heavily guarded, and entering the secret room would be extremely difficult. So, for the sake of my family and to clear our name, Julian and I decided to take the risk. Under the cover of night, the palace lay silent. dressed in black. Julian and I slipped into the palace like shadows. We avoided the patrolling guards and made our way to the remote building. When we arrived, we found the guards were even more vigilant than we had anticipated. They patrolled at regular intervals, and the slightest misstep would get us caught. Julian pulled me into a shadowy corner and whispered, "Sophie, I'll distract the guards. You seize the chance to enter the building and find the secret room." I nodded, worried for his safety but knowing this was our best option. Julian chose his moment, quietly sneaking behind the guards and using a sedative to knock out a few of them, creating a disturbance. The other guards rushed toward the noise. Seizing the opportunity, I slipped into the building. Inside it was pitch dark and eerie. Relying on memory and instinct, I searched for the entrance to the secret room. Finally, in a hidden corner I found a floor tile that seemed different from the others. I pressed it hard and a wall slowly slid open, revealing a staircase leading underground. I carefully descended the stairs, the air growing musty and pungent. After what felt like a long way down, I reached the secret room. Several large chests were stored inside. I opened them. They were filled with letters. I eagerly sifted through them, looking for the key evidence against the consort. Just then I heard footsteps. Someone was coming. My heart raced and I hid behind a chest. Several women dressed as palace maids entered the room. One of them said, "The consort ordered us to move these letters immediately. They must not be discovered." So the consort had been prepared. I grew anxious. If they took the letters, all our efforts would be in vain. As they began moving the chests, I rushed out and struggled with them. But I was outnumbered and soon overpowered. Just as I was losing hope, Julian arrived in the nick of time. With his skilled moves, he quickly subdued the maids. We grabbed the letters and fled the palace in the chaos. Without delay, we presented the crucial letters to the emperor. When he saw them, he was enraged. The evidence of the consort's crimes was undeniable. The emperor immediately ordered the consort confined to the cold palace, and her followers were punished. My father was released and cleared of all charges. The Sioux family's name was finally restored. The mansion was filled with joy, and my family's attitude toward me did a complete turnaround. They were now grateful and full of admiration. My mother held my hand, tears streaming down her face. "Sophie, I was wrong. I misjudged you in the past. You are the savior of our family." I looked at her, my emotions mixed. The past hurts were still fresh, but seeing the sincerity in her eyes, some of my hatred began to fade. Oliver and Ryan sang my praises, realizing I was no longer the little sister they needed to protect but a brave and resourceful woman who could hold up half the sky for the Sioux family. Lily approached me shamefacedly and said softly, "Sister, I was wrong. I was foolish in the past, easily influenced by others. I hurt you so much. Can you forgive me?" I looked at her and sighed. Let the past stay in the past. I hope you understand now that family should support each other, not scheme against one another. Lily nodded tearfully. After this ordeal, the Sioux family's reputation in the capital not only recovered but grew stronger. My relationship with Julian also deepened through these trials. He proposed to me, and my father happily agreed. In the days leading up to the wedding, the Sioux mansion was filled with joy. Watching my busy family, I felt a wave of emotions. After being reborn, enduring hardships, I had finally reclaimed justice for myself and found true family love and romance. At last, the day of my wedding to Julian arrived. The Sioux mansion was decorated with lanterns and streamers, bustling with excitement. Dressed in a magnificent phoenix crown and embroidered robes, I was escorted slowly to the wedding sedan by the matron of honor. Crowds of well-wishers lined the streets, praising Julian and me as a perfect match. The sounds of firecrackers and drums filled the air. When the sedan arrived at the Lynn residence, Julian was already waiting there, dressed in red robes and beaming with joy. He took my hand, and we entered the hall together. Amid everyone's blessings, we completed the solemn wedding ceremony. After the rites, I was led to the bridal chamber. Sitting on the wedding bed, I felt both nervous and excited. Before long, Julian pushed the door open and entered. He gently lifted my red veil, his eyes filled with love as he gazed at me. "Sophie, from today onward, you are my wife. I will protect you for the rest of my life and never let you suffer again." I looked at him, tears welling in my eyes, and nodded with a smile. "Julian, I trust you." That night, moonlight streamed through the window, casting a warm and romantic glow in the room. We confided in each other, reminiscing about every moment since we had met. After so many trials and tribulations, we had finally come together. This happiness was hard-won and we cherished it deeply. After marriage, Julian and I shared a loving and respectful relationship. Julian continued to serve the country in the court, while I assisted him in managing household affairs and maintained close ties with the Sioux family. Under my father and brother's management, the Sioux family prospered more than ever. In our leisure time, Julian and I traveled together, enjoying the beauty of life. We often hosted banquets, inviting friends and family to gather. In this turbulent world, we had created our own little haven of happiness through our efforts. Whenever I recalled the tragedies of my past life, I felt immensely grateful for this second chance to rewrite my destiny and secure this precious happiness. However, our peaceful days did not last long. News arrived from the border that a neighboring country was stirring, showing signs of invasion. The court grew tense, and preparations began to counter the threat. As the son of General Lin Jingfeng, Julian volunteered to go to the border and contribute to defending the country. Though my heart ached at the thought of his departure, I understood the greater cause and silently supported him. "Julian, you must be careful. I will pray day and night for your safe return," I said, tightly clutching his hand, my eyes filled with worry. Julian looked at me tenderly. "Sophie, don't worry. I will return safely. Take care of yourself while I'm gone. If you face any difficulties, turn to the Sioux family. They will help you." After Julian left, I couldn't shake my anxiety. I knew that if war broke out, the people would suffer greatly. So, I decided to do my part by helping the Sioux family gather supplies to support the front line. Together with Oliver and Ryan, I organized the Sioux family servants to work day and night preparing military rations, clothing and other essentials. I also used my connections in the capital to raise funds and purchase more supplies. During this process, I discovered that some wealthy merchants were hoarding supplies and driving up prices for their own gain. I realized this would not only affect the war effort but also make life harder for the common people. I decided to expose these merchants' misdeeds and wage a silent battle against them. I gathered evidence of their hoarding and price gouging, joined forces with like-minded individuals, and reported them to the authorities. Faced with undeniable proof, the authorities had no choice but to investigate, confiscate the hoarded supplies and stabilize prices in the capital. Though my efforts were only a drop in the bucket, I hoped to make a tangible difference for the soldiers at the front line and the people threatened by the war. Meanwhile, on the distant battlefield, Julian faced unknown challenges. Would he return safely? What did the future hold? Everything remained uncertain. On the border battlefield, smoke filled the air, and the sounds of fighting echoed everywhere. Julian led the soldiers in fierce clashes with the enemy. The enemy forces were numerous and aggressive, but Julian fearlessly repelled their attacks again and again with his exceptional military skills and combat prowess. However, the enemy seemed to recognize Julian's prowess and began concentrating their forces to surround him. Julian found himself trapped, with soldiers falling around him. He was wounded in multiple places but continued to fight desperately. In one intense battle, Julian was struck by an enemy spear while trying to save a young soldier. Despite his injuries, he kept swinging his sword, battling the enemy. Just as he began to weaken, reinforcements finally arrived and drove the enemy back. Julian was rushed to a military tent for treatment. The army doctor examined his wounds with a furrowed brow. "General Lin, your injuries are severe. This spear wound has hit a critical spot. We can only do our best." Lying on the sickbed, pale but determined, Julian said, "I cannot die. I promised Sophie I would return safely." Meanwhile, in the capital, I felt an inexplicable sense of unease. I prayed for Julian day and night and accelerated the preparation of supplies, hoping to send them to the front line as soon as possible to support the soldiers. Finally, batches of supplies were ready. Along with Oliver and Ryan, I personally led a convoy to transport them to the border. We traveled day and night, enduring hardships along the way. When we arrived, we were met with a devastating scene. The battlefield was littered with casualties and injured soldiers lay moaning in tents. Frantically, I searched for Julian and found him unconscious in a tent. Seeing his pale face and numerous wounds, my heart felt as if it were tearing apart. "Julian, you must wake up. You promised me you'd return safely," I whispered, holding his hand as tears streamed down my face. I stayed by Julian's bedside day and night, tending to him carefully. I personally prepared his medicine and fed it to him spoon by spoon. Every time I saw him wince in pain, my heart ached. Under my careful care, Julian's condition gradually improved. He finally opened his eyes and, seeing me by his side, smiled weakly. "Sophie, you're here. But I'd never see you again." Tears welled in my eyes again. "Silly, you promised to return safely. How could I let anything happen to you?" In the days that followed, I remained by Julian's side without leaving. I accompanied him on walks outside the tent and encouraged him through his recovery exercises. Julian cooperated fully, knowing that only by recovering quickly could he continue to defend the country and protect me. The border conflict temporarily eased as the enemy retreated after repeated defeats. But we knew they would not give up easily and could attack again at any time. After recovering, Julian immediately threw himself into training the troops and strengthening defenses. I, too, kept busy using my medical skills and the unique abilities of the springwater system to help injured soldiers recover faster. The soldiers were deeply grateful. Seeing a woman like me working so tirelessly boosted their morale immensely. Through this process, my bond with Julian grew even stronger. We supported each other, facing the hardships of war together. Meanwhile, in the capital, under my father's leadership, the Sioux family continued to provide supplies and support to the front line. We stood united with the soldiers at the border, working together to defend the country. Though the shadow of war still loomed over us, I believed that as long as we stood together, we could overcome the enemy and usher in a dawn of peace.